So I'm a professor of evolutionary biology within the School of Biological Sciences, and so my teaching is centred around the interplay between evolutionary process and biodiversity, and the research that I do and the research that my PhD students and postdocs do is trying to understand how DNA changes to allow adaptation of organisms to the environments that they find themselves in, so they're perfectly adapted. Well, the climate change crisis is obviously an existential challenge for extant biodiversity. And one way that populations and species can perhaps cope with climate change is through adapting and evolving to the new suite of pressures that they're facing. And we really don't know a great deal about how that can operate, and certainly the extent to which populations can keep track and keep pace with these very rapidly changing populations. And we also know that some of the more acute effects of anthropogenic change, things like overfishing and habitat fragmentation, can itself erode the genetic variation that is the sort of raw material for evolution. So the ability for populations and species to evolve their way out of the climate crisis is really an open question that we need to try and focus on. I think in the broadest terms, what I would like to see is firstly an end to sort of climate change scepticism about A, whether it exists and happens, and B, its full scope and scale. And I'd also want to see that there's a collective responsibility of governments and nations to come up with sort of coordinated, fair and effective climate action targets and a route map to get there. And also that we recognise that there's an individual responsibility for us all to change our behaviour so that we're reducing our own carbon footprints.